Hello, this is your Captain Adventurina speaking. Okay, some people already unsubscribed. Welcome, guys, for another episode of my travel podcast, Adventurina. Thank you so much for listening again and for tuning in. Hope you guys had a good week. Hope you had some fun, wherever you are. I recently came back from a trip to the amazing Sedona in Arizona. For those of you guys who don't know that destination, Sedona is an incredible landscape with massive red sandstone formations. It's literally a paradise for people who love hiking and hitting all those unbeaten paths. Sedona is not a national park, despite what a lot of people think. It is a state park, though. I personally don't care what kind of park it is. What I know is that this place is out of this world and it's so impressive that I will definitely go back. It's also a great destination for people who love practicing yoga and people who love meditation. If you are into some spiritual stuff, you would love Sedona. We saw a lot of people meditating, doing yoga, and just taking, their time to kind of reconnect with themselves. Sedona is believed to be a place with extremely high concentration of energy, by the way. According to experts, there are specific places there called vortexes where the energy either enters the earth or goes out of it. Whichever it is, no matter if you believe it or not, you can't really deny the presence of this energy once you're there. And those vortexes, those vortex places, many people say they really feel a sudden energy hit once they reach them, or even like the desire to cry. I did not cry when I reached some of the vortexes during our hiking, but something kind of weird actually happened. As someone who spends a lot of time, long hours sitting in front of a computer, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little concerned about, all those hikes and advanced traces we were gonna do. I love being outside, I love hiking and wandering in nature, but for the last few months, I've been so busy that sometimes I would spend 15 hours in front of a computer and my only movement for the day would be from the office to my place. And that's it. So as I was packing my shit the day before we left for Sedona, I got up super fast and I got dizzy. And I was like, where the hell am I going? I literally see white spots every time I get up fast. And I'm about to visit this huge landscape where we're going to hike from morning to evening, from sunrise to sunset, miles per day, climbing rocks and stuff. I was pretty sure that was going to be my last vacation. No, just kidding. But yeah, I actually thought I was gonna die because this is like a huge challenge for someone who sits for so many hours per day. And last year I went to Hawaii and we did the Coco Head Trail, which is a nightmare for people who are not really active. And even for people who go to the gym often, this hike can be pretty advanced too. So if you don't believe me, guys, check it out, Coco Head Trail in Oahu, Hawaii. So last year I came back after this incredibly hard but super rewarding hike in Hawaii, and I couldn't walk for almost 2 months. Like, I was limping because my calf was hurting so bad, and I literally thought I had some serious injury that would require, doctor's visits. Thankfully, it went away, but until then, Anyway, remembering that, I was pretty sure I was going to injure myself again in Sedona because this was not just a hike. We are talking days of hiking. But we went there, woke up at 5 a.m. every freaking day, started our first hikes at 7 a.m. every morning and kept hiking for a whole day. We would walk about 15 miles, if not more, per day. And let me tell you, I'm not only talking walking on the flat, we're talking some climbing shit here. So with all that, day after day, I got 0 sore muscles. Absolutely nothing. And I'm like, wait, why does nothing hurt? I am not prepared for that. Why am I not complaining? How is it possible for someone so inactive like me to be able to hike and climb rocks for a few days with no pain anywhere? It was extremely weird. I didn't even take a goddamn aspirin, nothing. So I don't know about the energy in Sedona, but I think whatever it is there, it made it really bearable and weird in a good way for me. But yes, this Sedona trip was basically my birthday vacation. Every year I have this tradition on my birthday to do something I have never done before or to go somewhere I've never been before. I usually try to do something that I have never done before first, but if I cannot find such activity, I just go somewhere I've never been before because, this is still considered something I've never done before, right? Because when you go somewhere you've never been before, you get to do something you've never done before. I don't even know what I said, but anyway, yeah, so far I've checked, some pretty cool stuff off my birthday list, such as swimming with a dolphin, attending my first baseball game, riding ATV, scuba diving in Hawaii. Not my thing, actually, but I'll tell you another time. Also visiting Milan. I even got to celebrate my 30th birthday in Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and it was a real celebration of, one 30-year-old kid. It was awesome. Another year I remember I spent in a really small circle with my friends because it was goddamn COVID and we weren't even allowed to celebrate, but it was great. I mean, I still got to have a little celebration, so I'm not complaining. The decision to go to Sedona was not a spontaneous decision, but it wasn't the initial plan either. The initial plan for my 21st birthday, just kidding, I turned 32, I'm not embarrassed to say it. The initial plan for my 32nd birthday was to go to Chicago, and I wanted to get on that train that goes from California all the way to Illinois. It crosses 9 states, I believe, and it's one hell of a ride. So it sounds just like me. But back in April, I traveled to Seattle and I got to ride similar train, but from Seattle down to San Francisco. So pretty much half of the West Coast. And I'm like, I did that kind of train ride literally last month. I won't really appreciate getting on a similar train again in such short period. I kind of need to miss it to, build the excitement. Otherwise, I'm not gonna enjoy the experience that much. Plus, I always try to mix up my vacations. If I go somewhere like a national park or some kind of nature destination, I like to go after that to like a city or some kind of, city environment type of vacation. Then for the next trip, I want to enjoy some beach, something more like, an exotic destination, something hot. And after that, maybe I can do like an amusement park or some theme park, thrill rides, stuff like that. I'm always trying to mix it up, and that was the reason for me to kind of like change the Chicago plan. Chicago, by the way, is one of the places that I've been trying to go for years, and every time I'm really close to start planning, something happens, like something comes up like last moment and changes the plan. Every time I decide to go there, something happens, and again now something happened and I decided to go to Sedona instead. But one day I'll be there at Chicago. Just stay there and wait for me, okay? So after I decided not to go to Chicago, I'm like, I'm just going to check some cheap flights from San Francisco, and whatever is budget friendly, I'll go with it, because that's another thing I do to save on travels. Sometimes I don't buy tickets for the destinations I want the destinations that I see tickets for. So depending on the price, if I find something cheap, you know me, I'm willing to go anywhere, so sign me up. I've never been there, it's cheap, let's go. And that's how it happened this time. I just opened Google Flights and I searched for specific dates. Then I saw Phoenix. I've been to Arizona before, but on a road trip from California. I have visited Grand Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, Lake Powell, Antelope Canyon. Amazing places. Arizona really impressed me in a way back then. And I do claim that it's one of the most beautiful states nature-wise. Extremely hot though, but still one of the most beautiful ones. So anyway, I saw Phoenix and I'm like, okay, I haven't been to Phoenix except for, airport transfers, connection flights, so let's go check it out. And I have had Sedona on my list for a while, so I took it as a sign. Plus, I had just came back from Seattle, and as I said, I needed some nature after the city vibe. So chickens were really cheap. Chickens? Tickets were really cheap. Not chickens were really cheap. I don't know what that means, but tickets were really cheap. And of course, I also found a good deal on a rental car that we picked up from Phoenix. So here we go, Sedona. But long story short, Sedona was amazing. I'm working on my blog post that is going to cover all the trails we conquered, and I'm gonna give all the information I've gathered. I don't know if I'm going to mention in my blog post that I almost shit my pants because of the heights in Sedona, and whoever knows me is aware that I'm afraid of heights, but of course I always try to fight my fears, and yeah, almost shitting my pants literally, but I'll think about sharing that in my blog post. I would definitely share it with you guys in the next episode, but until then, last week, there were actually people who kept texting me that they checked out the first few episodes and they're like, oh, when are we finishing the perfect travel itinerary part? And I'm like, damn, people actually listen to that shit, huh? Not just kidding. I mean, isn't that the purpose? But yeah. I mean, let's just pick up from whatever we left off. I remember we talked about choosing our destination, having our days off prepared so it gives us a better idea of our arrival and departure time, and this way we know exactly how much time we have to explore the destination and how to plan accordingly. So I also remember we talked about checking the travel restrictions, booking some kind of transport, and also finding accommodation. After that, we also covered the part with checking the top 10 or 20 or whatever places to visit, and I advised you guys to check pictures and articles of the most popular places you see on Google or whatever you're doing your research, because you're not going to be interested in all of them. And also I said don't waste time with something that you don't find interesting just because other people recommended it. Let's just face it, we usually want to see what a place looks like before we actually commit to visiting it. But there are also people who don't want to check photos prior to their vacation because they want to be surprised when they get there. And I love that too. I also understand that sometimes, unless you see how everything looks or what exactly it is, you're not really in a position to tell if you're gonna like it or not. Sometimes maybe you wouldn't like the way a thing looks on a photo, but maybe you'll get impressed when you get there. Sometimes the opposite. You see something really cool on a photo, but when you get there, you're like, oh, what the hell is that? Same thing that we talked about last time, pictures setting our expectations. And sometimes those expectations are kind of unreal. Most of the times, though, you just know you're not gonna like it because it's not your thing. If it doesn't trigger any excitement in you, it's not your thing to do. So you don't have to waste time with it. For me, checking photos helps me to really decide which attraction is my priority and which ones reflect my interest in general. And this way I can just exclude what's not a must for myself. Because talking with friends and people who have been there is kind of subjective sometimes. What's worth is different for everyone. And the more you ask people, the more they will give you different answers. Their opinion, may not match yours because your interests are different. If you ask someone who loves museums and art, should I go to the Metropolitan Museum in New York? And they're gonna be like, hell yeah, it's a must. You have to spend at least one day there. It's huge. And you, not being an art person, you're gonna end up there and be like, what the hell? A whole day for this place? I don't think so. Just because someone told you to visit a place, that doesn't mean you like it. Just because it's recommended, that doesn't mean it's a must. You still need to stick to the things you're interested in. In other words, your musts will be different than someone else's musts. For example, I like museums, but I'm not going to dedicate a whole day just to go from museum to museum without knowing why I'm there and what am I looking at. Because I'm not a huge fan of galleries and art. I do love seeing beautiful paintings, for example, but I don't have the knowledge and I don't have the imagination to walk for hours and to be interested in every piece. Even if I read the story behind every piece that is displayed in the museum, I'm still not going to enjoy this whole thing as much as I would enjoy it if I was, a huge art fan. I still love going to museums. I just don't take as long as someone who's like a huge fan of those things. For a museum that some people spend like a whole day, I would spend like three hours and a half, for example. I don't even know which kind of art I prefer. I would say I enjoy more going to museums of modern art, but in general, if it's something really impressive from any part of the world, from any era or whatever, I would like to see it because, if it has some historic value, if it's something that is unique, who doesn't want to see it? I may not spend as much time as other people, but I would love to see it. People say they're just things that you cannot miss if you go to certain destinations. You cannot miss the Colosseum if you're going to Rome. You cannot miss Mona Lisa if you're going to Paris, stuff like that. So when I was in Milan, in Italy a few years ago, this is where they keep the Last Supper of Leonardo da Vinci in this church called Santa Maria della Grazie. Please, my fellow Italian friends, forgive me for the horrible pronunciation. But anyway, I just remember insisting on seeing it because I knew this was something that we shouldn't miss in Milan. Getting tickets for seeing this painting, it was a real challenge. The tickets were limited. Certain days of the week, and you literally have to click for minutes before they release the tickets if you want to have like 10% chance to get them. So anyway, this was something iconic that I insisted on seeing, and I remember even me not being a huge art fan, I was standing in front of this painting and I was like blown away. It was extremely impressive, much bigger than I expected it to be. Just the presence of this painting was inevitable even for a person like me. So long story short, just check pictures and articles because this is how you're going to eliminate what's not on your personal list. And this is how you're gonna end up only with things that you would really enjoy doing and seeing. Of course, if you want to try something new, go for it, but if you know yourself and what you're interested in, just stick to it. While you're doing this research though, it's also good for you to check the working days and working hours of all the attractions you're going to visit, because this way you can match the time you have at your destination with their working hours and see which thing is good for visiting on which day. Also, keep in mind how long your vacation is, so you don't end up making plans for 10 days when you only have 5, for example. Pick a realistic number of places for the duration of your stay. The other step of your planning will be to find the places you're interested in from the top destinations on the map. Opening Google Maps is one of the greatest joys of my life. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding. You know what? I'm not kidding. Like, when I open Google freaking Maps, I'm just excited because I know I'm going to do a research equals to going somewhere. Yeah, I don't care. I love it. Every time I open Google Maps, I'm excited because it means I'm going to find new places. I'm going to make my plan. I'm already visioning my vacation. Call me crazy. Don't call me crazy. No, that's not right. This is not... Anyway, yeah, whatever. You've got your list of must-see places, and now it's time to figure out exactly where they are. Why this is important? Because first, we're going to have a whole idea of the place we're going to. We're going to see where our hotel is, for example. We're going to see where the airport is. We're going to see where the attractions we want to visit are. This way, we have a realistic expectations of commute, public transport, and how much time it would take for us to go from place to place. So grab your list of places you want to visit in the city and check them out on the map. Just see how far away from each other they are. Check the distance from the airport. Check the distance from, one location to another. This will help you determine if any of the places you want to visit is too far away and maybe you won't make it. The key is to make the most of your time, because sometimes people book hotels just because they're cheap and they end up being far away from everything interesting, far away from even public transport, and they end up wasting so much time in commute that it takes half of their day. No one wants that. And literally, when I say I love Google Maps, when you open my phone, as I said, it's all maps, websites for accommodation, checking plane tickets, travel videos. Everything is like a little encyclopedia, and with so much information, it's kind of a shame for us to go unprepared, especially when it comes to the basic idea of where you are at. And that's why you have the internet. So let's say you have already checked all the places you want to visit in your destination. You have already checked them on the map. Now it's time for you to group them by regions, by areas, with other words, pretty much depending on what part of the city or whatever you're going to, what part of the area those places are. And this is basically the order you're going to visit them in. Let me elaborate a little bit on this one. Let me elaborate you. Okay, I cannot help it. So you save a lot of time and you avoid unnecessary walking by organizing your attractions and places to see in groups. So organizing attractions and places to see by areas has been my number one friend when planning a trip. People always ask me, how do you go to so many places in such short time? Sometimes I go somewhere for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and there's so much to see that it's impossible for you to fit everything in your plan. And they're like, do you just run through your destination? Do you just go take a picture and leave? I'm like, hell no. I always spend like a quality time everywhere I go, and I manage, to do it by just a good planning. So let's say I'm in Milan, because I already mentioned Milan in this episode. I want to go to a few different places, and they're all in different areas of the city. I'm not just going to be like, oh, let's do this, and maybe we can go to this one, because I feel like this is the order I want to visit them. This is not going to be the way I organize my day. I'm just going to group them by neighborhoods. So once I go to one specific neighborhood, I see everything that is worth it, and then I'm done with this part of the city. I don't have to go back there anymore, because it would be a waste of time if I'm close to something that I want to see and I just miss it and I go back another day, same direction. Why? It's so unnecessary. If I'm really close to something, why would I leave and go back the other day to see it? It's just a waste of time. So anything you have in the same area, make sure to plan it for the same day. Dividing your attractions by regions or areas or neighborhoods also gives you the opportunity to divide them by days after that. So if you have 5 places in this neighborhood, and if you think that this is going to take like a whole day, you're just gonna take one full day for this part of the city. Then, knowing how much another neighborhood will take, maybe plan half of the day in this one and the other half in another one. Combine it with other neighborhood, or maybe spend the whole day in one neighborhood. But use geography in general. So again, picking up your places, finding them on the map, grouping them by regions, and putting them in different dates on your itinerary. I also like to do something called skip if needed. I mean, no one calls it like this. This is just the way I call it. It's not even a thing. But yeah, let me explain a little bit about this thing. I totally get how disappointing it can be when things don't go as planned. I hate that more than anything when I'm traveling. I said it already, but that's the truth. Sometimes things, just get messy, and it's okay. You have to skip, some things from your plan. And when I say it's okay, I really mean it's not okay, but do you have a choice? It doesn't depend on you, so you deal with it. We, of course, want to see everything, but sometimes it's just not possible. It might be a weather issue, might be a working hour issue, might be transport issue, bad luck. So many things can happen, but one thing that helps me not getting extremely pissed when my plans are ruined is to have a decision in advance. I decide in advance which attractions or things I could skip in case of, let's say, emergency. you know? So if I have to, I already have a small list of places that I would skip if needed. In other words, you just prioritize everything that you really want to see and you leave the rest to hell. This way, if I have to choose between two places, I have a prior decision of which one to skip. So I'm gonna be a little less pissed than usual. By the way, this just hurts to think about. I don't know about you guys, but I'm already pissed just talking about it. And you can just mark the attractions or places that are must for you, and you know that no matter what, you have to see them. And then with the rest, I just decide, I will be okay for me to skip them if I'm running out of time, if I need to leave to the airport, or if something else happens, because, traveling is unpredictable sometimes. If you're going to another country, especially if you have never been there before, it's a great thing for you to Google the most traditional meals. Get familiar with their cuisine because part of our experience in other countries and one of the best ways to know them and their traditions is food. Food takes a huge place in every country's culture. Even talk to locals. One of the best parts of traveling is the interaction with different nationalities and getting familiar with their way of living. I love food. For me, food is a significant part of any travel experience. Not only travel experience, actually significant part of my life as my fat ass, because trying out new cuisines can literally give you a glimpse into a country's culture and traditions. So the same way you're looking up must-see places and stuff like this, look up local dishes and local cuisine, find out dishes, pastries, drinks, anything traditional that people recommend trying. And remember, don't feel obligated to try everything. Be thoughtful of your limits, of your body, and, just understand that some cuisines might not be suitable for everyone, if you know what I mean. Go ahead, try new things, try new flavors and spices, but always be careful and respectful of your body needs. Because last thing you want is to end up having explosive diarrhea in the middle of your vacation, or even worse, at the beginning of your vacation. When you travel far away from home, please forget about chains you see in your country. What's the point of having something you can have home, right? Try new things everywhere. Of course, if you're on a really tight budget or if you're super picky about food and you only want to stick to whatever is familiar to you, do your thing. But in any other case, broaden your horizons by doing things you can't do back home. Try new flavors that you cannot have home. As I said, I live in San Francisco and there are more than 4,000 places to eat here, which is an extremely high number, an extremely big variety at the same time. Yes, you can try food from almost anywhere in the world, and almost all the time the place will be owned by people from the respective country they're offering food from. But even then, it's still not as authentic as if you try it in the country itself, right? So I live in the Italian neighborhood of San Francisco, North Beach, or Little Italy, and there are Italian restaurants at every corner, of course. One better than another, many of them owned and managed by Italians with great food, amazing food. But doesn't matter how amazing it is, it will never beat the food you have in Italy. And I'm not saying that to offend them. It's just the way it works. It's only authentic if it's there. Of course, applies to every country, not just Italy. So, a lot of preparation so far, places, things to do, Googling, food. Sometimes we get so excited to plan our whole itinerary that we actually forget to think about the way we're departing and the way we're arriving. We're too focused on what's in between. How do we get to the airport and how do we get to our hotel and all the way back? In other words, the transportation from and back to the airport. And it's important for you to think about this in advance because, let's admit it, it's stressful to have to figure it out at the moment. Your internet may suck due to, international service. You may miss a good public transportation opportunity that would take you super close to your hotel if only you knew about it. A lot of people end up being at the airport or leaving to the airport without having a plan in advance, and they have to spend a lot of money just because they didn't research in advance. Because hopping on a cab or requesting an Uber is the easiest decision at those moments, right? It's the easiest decision, but not the most budget friendly one. You don't want to end up overspending on a cab or getting lost by getting multiple buses in the wrong direction. Usually, there are public shuttles, independent shuttles, public transport, which I really like because most of the airports have really easy and cheap way to get tourists from the airport to downtown of the city you're going to, if it's a city, you know. But in general, make sure you secure at least 2 different ways to reach the airport on your way there and back, because what if one of them doesn't work? You need a backup plan. And it's important for you to be on time because your flight depends on that. You don't want to spend extra money on booking another flight because you missed the original one, right? My mind immediately goes red flag, red flag, red flag, thinking of the money that I have to spend on a missed flight as missed experiences that I could have spent this money on. I personally hate when I have to figure out things on the go. I'm somewhere trying to enjoy my vacation and soak in everything around me, and I realize I didn't look up the way to this beach or the way to this attraction. Next thing I know, I'm spending 5 minutes on my goddamn phone trying to see how to do something that I should have prepared in advance. Again, waste of time. Okay, there is one more last thing that keeps you away from the perfect finishing of your plan. Provide a family member or a close friend with your itinerary and the places you're going to, or at least the place you're staying at. This is a really helpful tip because sometimes people travel solo and it's always good for someone to know where you are. Maybe sharing location with a close person is too much for some people, but as someone who often travels solo, I would say better safe than sorry, guys. You can always give them access to your location during your vacation and turn it off after. It's temporary. If not, at least share with them details of where you're staying or what's your plan of leaving, arriving, whatever. I vividly remember a situation from a few years ago. I was in San Francisco before I moved here, and I was dog sitting my best friend's dog. Shout out to Rocco, as known as Mr. Stinks. So I was staying at my friend's place in San Francisco, and at the time they lived in a building with a supermarket on the ground floor. And back then I was sharing my location with one of my best friends who lives in the UK. A few days after I started dog sitting, my friend from the UK calls me and she's like, "Dude, is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "I've been checking your location since yesterday and you've been staying in this supermarket. I thought you forgot your phone there or you became homeless. You haven't moved since yesterday." It was funny to see what people can think of something so simple to explain, and at the same time it was also good to know that if God forbid something was to happen, at least there would be one person to know. It's a good example of how, she would have known first. So it's a good idea for you to share your location with someone you trust. Just let's take advantage of technology and let's just be safe as possible, especially when we are traveling by ourselves. And I'm not talking about stalking each other in general, just use the location for this purpose. And I can probably say that at this point, you've done an amazing job. You've been through all the steps of the perfect planning, and now it's time to relax and just to vision your vacation and to enjoy your adventure. Hope you guys, would find something helpful from all the non-stop talking I did for the last 30 minutes, 30 plus. I really think self-planning is the best way to go. I've been doing it for myself for more than 10 years at this point, and I love it. I'm telling you, once you come back from your first vacation that you planned on your own, once you hit all those places on your list, you will be so motivated to create another itinerary. It's like a bug, actually. And the more you plan, the better you'll get at it. So thank you so much for listening again, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, send a question, a photo, whatever you want. This is your show as well, so let's do it together. Stay tuned, guys, because my next episode is landing shortly. Until next time.